there. Today I'd like to try and cover pixels versus vectors. And for the purpose of today's exercise, that little chunk of cardboard is going to be pixel. The reason that I wanted to kind of break this down and give a real world example is that people kind of don't get this. And I was thinking about a way that I could explain this that would hopefully make sense. So, to begin with, I want you to think of a pixel as just a little block of colour. If you've seen old video games, you would have seen chunks of artwork that are made up of pixels. So there's our pixel. The thing that people get confused about is the difference between the two, and so here we go. Let's say I wanted to draw a triangle. I'd collect up a bunch of my pixels like this and arrange them in this manner, and we end up with a super awesome, legit looking triangle. Now, the problem that happens is if I wanted to make this triangle, say for example, this much bigger, then I'm going to need to add some more pixels to my artwork. Now, the software only knows the information that we've given it, so it only has this amount of pixels to try and draw that shape. So it's going to take its best guess at where those pixels should be in order to draw the triangle. But what happens is that the software has to guess where all the missing pixels are. And so on and so forth, to draw the rest of our triangle. That means that we're going to lose quality. The reason that we're going to lose quality is there's just not enough information in this 20 or so pixels to basically to draw this shape. And it's less of an issue, but that also happens if I was to try and draw a teeny tiny triangle, because it's got to take all my pixels and it's got to decide which ones to chuck out, which ones to keep to draw my teeny tiny triangle. So all this information here is lost. When I'm drawing my teeny tiny baby triangle. So, pixels are a really good way to draw all sorts of things, including photos. Really? It's enough. So, the thing that I usually hear from students when they describe what vector graphics is they go, oh, it's like maths or something. I'm like, well, yeah, it's kind of like maths, but you're not really kind of getting it. So, what it is it's a system of points and lines, which admittedly sounds a bit like maths. I don't like maths. I'm a terrible math person. So, let's say I wanted to draw a triangle in vectors. What I can do is I can put down a single point and a single point and a single point. And to illustrate this a little bit easier, this point here is on my corner, this point here is on my corner, and this point here is on my corner. Now what the software knows to do is it knows how to draw a line between these points. So in order to draw a triangle, it says as long as it knows where those points are, it knows how to draw a triangle shape. Now, this is where the difference between vector and raster becomes really important. Let's say I want to make this triangle heaps bigger, like in our previous example. I want to make my triangle this big. Because all I need to do is move the corners out, the coordinates of those corners out in the software, which is like that, then the software can draw a line between those really easily, and there's no loss of quality. So no matter what kind of shape you've got, if you've got these points, which is our little points of vector data, the software, all it has to do is draw a line between those points. So unlike our problem that we have with raster graphics and pixels, is we don't have to make up any new data, because the software knows that all it has to do is go between this point, and it's going to draw a nice, clean, smooth line. So what are some examples of vector graphics? Probably the main one that you're going to encounter is logos. And the reason that we want our logo to be in vector is it means that we can scale it up and down infinitely, and it's always going to work, because no matter how far apart our points are on our shape, the software is always going to know how to draw a line between those 2 points, which means that it always keeps the quality 100%. So we mostly use our vector artwork, we mostly create vector artwork in Illustrator. We can do it in Photoshop to a lesser degree, and we can also do it in InDesign, but most of our vector work is done in Illustrator. So that's a very high-level introduction to the two. Now I'm going to do a computer demo to hopefully bring all that stuff together. Okay, so we're back and we're on the computer now, and I'm in Photoshop. So remembering our example from before, this is an example of a blown up example of some pixel-based artwork, and we can see the individual pixels that make up the artwork. Now this is an example of some bitmap or raster type artwork. So that means that each individual pixel has got some color in it, and that's what makes up the photo. Now, when we talk about this, and I want to kind of move a little bit away from these square shapes just to make sure that you're clear on this. What I mean, is that when you've got raster-based artwork, it's generally photos. So if we have a look here, here's some raster-based artwork of the fonts, and if we zoom on in, we can see our individual pixels. So the main thing to bear in mind is that this is limited in terms of the quality and what we can do with this picture. If I was to have a look at the image size on this, and let's change it to 300 pixels per inch, I can see that the final print resolution of this picture is only 2 centimeters by 2.6 centimeters. So that's a pretty tiny picture and won't be good to use in print. Now, let's say I wanted to draw a triangle in Photoshop. I can do that. And I can get out my pen tool, which is sort of a vector-based tool, but I don't want to get too much into that just to muddy the waters today. But there we go. I've got a triangle here. If I have a look and I start zooming in, you can see that we're basically running up against the limit of the quality of the artwork that we can do. So this triangle that we've just drawn will be okay to use at the size that we've drawn it, and maybe even reduced in size, and it will look okay. I just had the cat knock the router off the table, so that's excellent. Super handy. Okay, so now if we go over into Illustrator and we draw a triangle as well, we've just put down our individual vectors. So these guys are just like the little push pins that I put into my pizza box before, and the software automatically knows how to connect those two lines up. You can even see it previewing it for me. So think of that connecting line as the string. So no matter how far apart those points are, or how big or how small I make this object, it's always going to stay at 100% quality, completely crisp, completely clean, and perfect to use. So to give an example that's a bit more real world rather than just random abstract shapes, I wanted to show you something. So here we have a beer label that I've done for a client, and this beer label is, it's 120-ish millimeters tall. This same artwork, and if we have a view look in outline mode so we can see that it's all vector, this same artwork I could use without any loss of quality on a 2 meter tall pull-up banner. So that beer label, because it was all designed in vectors, can now blow up to be 2 meters tall with no loss of quality. I could zoom in on any part of this, so just here for example, and you can see that it's all 100% crisp and clean. So that's a really quick introduction to the difference between vector and raster graphics, and each have their use, but hopefully you kind of understand the core concept a little bit better, and I might get into more detail on this in a future video. Thanks for watching.